Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Thank Goddess podcast. It's Dani here, your host. Today we are diving into a very interesting and important topic. I hope I don't spend too long on it because I really want to give more of just a general overview of Christ consciousness, what that is about. I mean, this is a really big topic and it's something we could explore for a long time, but my intention is to keep this podcast short and sweet so that maybe you've heard this term Christ consciousness and you're kind of wondering, what is that? What is everyone referring to when they're saying Christ consciousness? Because it's very much, I want to say, circulating at the moment. A lot of people are talking about it. So for me, on this podcast, I really just want to dive in and unpack it for you so that you have an idea about what it is. As I mentioned, it is a big topic. There's many layers to it. I'm just going to give an overview today. So that's my intention. So essentially, if I'm to summarize Christ consciousness like in a nutshell, which I don't really like to do, but really want to get across this message in the most simple way, Christ consciousness is essentially adopting the mindset or the values of Christ, of Jesus. I think this differs to a lot of Christian teachings. Christ consciousness, and I suppose the understanding of that is very, very different to what is propagated within the church and within a lot of dogmatic religions. So Christ consciousness, I would say, even though it does sound very Christian, and I am someone who studies A Course in Miracles, which uses Christian language, what is discussed in A Course in Miracles is actually very, very different to what's discussed in Christianity typically. And so I'm going to kind of talk about the differences here today. So Christ consciousness essentially is having this spiritual awareness that is essentially what Jesus was embodying when he was on earth. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this episode. What were his main teachings? Because that's very important to understand. What was Jesus really embodying when he came to earth? And if we can understand that, then we can too embody these teachings. Because Christ consciousness claims, and I know this may trigger a lot of Christians, that enlightenment is possible for all human beings. And that Jesus was, yes, he was an amazing spiritual teacher. Yes, I fully agree with that. I do believe Jesus was unique and he was probably, in my opinion, the most amazing spiritual teacher that we had on earth. But do I believe that Jesus is somehow higher than us, that we are to worship Jesus? No, I do not. And I don't believe that's what Jesus wanted as well. What I truly believe is Jesus, when he was on earth, what his teachings were truly saying is that, yes, I am the Christ, I am one with God, but so are you. You also have your own internal Christ. And a lot of the Gnostic Gospels, I did an episode a few weeks back about the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And even in that text, he says the Christ dwells within you. And be wary of people that say it's anywhere, anyone else than within you, because you have your own internal Christ. We are all Christ. And so to be Christ is to essentially recognize oneness with you and the Father, with you and Source, with God. There is only one God, and we, all of us incarnated, I want to say not just on planet Earth, but everything in the universe, all living organisms, right? So plants, animals, rocks, other species on other planets, everything that has been created is created from the one source. And to recognize that, to be one with that creator, is to align with the Christ consciousness. So Christ consciousness is not something to attain. It's not something that you know, if you work really hard, you can achieve it. It's actually something that already is within you. Like Jesus said, the Christ is within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. And so you can always align with the consciousness of the Christ, which is to recognize your eternal nature. And that's what the symbol of the cross truly represents. I'm very much into symbology, and anyone who studies metaphysics and a lot of Gnostic Christian mysticism, or any mysticism for that matter, understands that symbology is very important when it comes to spirituality. A symbol can speak a million words or more, and the cross is very symbolic for that matter, because the cross, right, the symbology of it, it basically represents this intersection between the horizontal and the vertical. And what does that mean? So when we incarnate, when we, I suppose, quote unquote, separate from God, which we never truly do, because we are always, as Jesus said, one with the Father. We are always connected to that one source, to our eternal nature. We can never actually be separate from that, but we appear to be separate from that. That is the horizontal line. So we think of life as like a very linear process. We think of time as linear. We think everything like I'm a baby, and then I get older, I grow older into a teenager, I go to school, I get a job, I grow older, I get married, have children, and we have this horizontal line, and we can perceive ourselves through that lens. And that lens, if we just view our life from that physical human incarnation, whatever incarnation is, but I'll try and simplify it by saying that if we incarnate as a human and we identify with that human consciousness, right, which believes, if it is not connected to its Christ nature, it believes that it is separate from the Father, from its creator, from its source. And that's the horizontal pathway which a lot of people are on. Now, to recognize the Christ is to bring the vertical in line with the horizontal. So to be in this body, right, because we all chose to incarnate, so that's not to excuse our physical essence. It's not to say that our humanness is bad. So much of Christianity says that we're just born sinners, which I do not believe at all. And I do not believe that was Jesus's message at all, that we're just born sinners, and that if you baptize, then you're saved from your sins. That just doesn't make sense to me. So you're telling me that, you know, this all-encompassing, loving God, our creator, is condemning babies to hell because they haven't been baptized? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I digress. Back to the cross symbology. That vertical line is to recognize my oneness with the creator, my divinity, my eternal nature. And when I remember that, when I embody that in my physical incarnation, that's when we have the cross, right? It's the intersection of the vertical and the horizontal. That's the cross. That's what it truly represents. And that's what we're all here to do. We're all here to awaken, to remember, to align with the Christ within us, and to walk each moment. Because when you think about the cross, it's really signifying the holy instant, which they refer to a lot in A Course in Miracles. Also the present moment, right? The present moment. Everything happens in the present moment. Because it's only in the present moment that we can access the vertical, that we can access our higher self, our soul, our Christ, our true essence. It's only in this present moment. And that's where miracles can happen. That's when we can jump timelines. That's when we can heal. That's when we can have ideas, and we can have solutions to problems. It all happens in the present moment. And we do that by accessing the vertical, by remembering who we are, by stilling that, you know, monkey mind, as they call it, our ego, that's worried about the future, or thinking about the past, or my past traumas, or like this mental chatter that we have in our head all the time, you know, back and forward, like this, that, worrying about things that it doesn't matter, right? Thinking about what other people are going to think, thinking about, you know, I don't know, just things that are not that important. When we focus on that, we're not allowing our vertical self, our higher self, our Christ, to be embodied through us in this present moment. So that's what the cross truly represents, okay? More from an esoteric level. They won't teach you this in the church, but this is truly what it represents, and very much about what Jesus was truly teaching. And I think for me, coming to this realization that, you know, I only found Christ consciousness probably only a year ago or so, when I had my spiritual awakening a few years ago, and I was very resistant to anything to do with what I believed was related to Christianity or the Catholic Church. I was actually raised Catholic, so I had a very strict upbringing. I have Italian heritage, and actually I'm got Irish and Italian heritage, which are both very strict Catholic cultures. You know, they have a long rooted history with the Catholic Church. So I very much grew up in that dogmatic religion. And I found, just as a little girl, you know, I actually enjoyed going to church. I enjoyed the songs, I enjoyed praying, I enjoyed that connection with the divine. But the thing that really perplexed me as a little girl, and probably what I think a lot of people that don't identify with Christianity and they move away from the church, is there's so many contradictions between what was being taught by Jesus, what Jesus's message were, when Jesus was always saying, love thy neighbor, you know, love your brother. Jesus was mainly just teaching people to love everyone, love them as you would love yourself. And then I would see people within the church just gossiping about other people. I would see them acting in unloving ways and holding people out of their hearts, particularly, you know, hearing comments about people that practice a different religion. You know, I heard a lot of like racist comments about people that were Islamic or people that were gay. They're sinners and they're going to hell, and that just never sat with me. Like, I just thought, how can, you know, this all-loving Father, you know, Jesus is talking about how God is just unconditional love, and then you're saying that we have to, as Christians, hold all of these people out of our hearts and that they're all condemned, that babies, innocent children that Jesus always speaks so fondly about, how we should all return to children or baby-like in order to access the kingdom of heaven. You're saying that children that aren't baptized within a church are like somehow condemned to hell. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, as a little girl, I was just like, this doesn't make sense. And the thing that really just completely moved me off Christianity, I think this was in my late teens or early 20s, probably my early 20s actually. One of the priests at the church that I went to, he made a comment about, for those of you in Australia, you might remember there was, going back many years ago now, like over a decade, but there was a journalist, quite a famous journalist, and she was raped and murdered. Her name was Jill Ma, you could like look it up. She was raped and murdered. It was quite a public case, a public story that was presented in the news, and there was a lot of backlash towards her because she was a woman and she had been, I believe she was out with her friends, maybe drinking, so maybe she was a bit tipsy or drunk, who knows, and she walked home from the bar back to her house, and a lot of people said that she deserved to be raped and murdered because she was, one, walking alone at nighttime as a woman, and two, she had been out drinking without her partner. And basically, if a woman is out by herself at nighttime with her friends drinking alcohol, then she's just asking to be raped and murdered by a serial killer. So that was a lot of people's opinions at that time. I remember it very clearly because, you know, I'm someone, and I've spoken about this on previous episodes, who has been raped before. And I have had my own experiences with sexual abuse and sexual harassment. And I know very well how it feels to, as a victim of these crimes, to then have people question your integrity and to question, I suppose, to almost gaslight you and then to defend the perpetrator. I mean, I've experienced it many times in my life, and I think for me, this story really hit something within me. Like, you know, it really hit home within me, having had my own experiences. And to bring this back, the priest at the church that I was going to, he actually made comments, and this was reported on the news, to a group of students. I believe they were like maybe 12 years old. Like, he was the priest at like one of the Catholic schools, and he made a comment about how this Jill Ma deserved to be raped, or she was asking to be raped because she was alone at nighttime and she should have been at home with her partner. And yeah, basically she kind of asked for it to happen. And when I heard that, I got very, very triggered, and I just didn't want to have anything to do with the church. After that, I thought, how can this person who's meant to be a spiritual teacher, a spiritual leader, particularly with children, innocent children, how can he be spreading that message to young girls and even to boys, even to excuse that behavior? I just thought that is just ludicrous, and I don't want to have anything to do with this religion. So that completely put me off the church. And I had seen so many, not as extreme examples, but I had seen a lot of hate within religion, and somehow it was justified by the Lord's name. And that was the part of me that didn't want to have anything with the church. And I think for Christians, and I think Christianity is a beautiful religion, and I think a lot of more good comes out of it than bad. I'm just speaking about how every system there's corruption. So I'm not saying that in any way that religion is bad. Religion helped me a lot to get to where I am to today. But I think for a lot of Christians, or any religion for that matter, any dogmatic teaching, I think you need to be very careful, because I think there's a lot of escapism in religion. When we think that, just by being baptized, just by claiming the Lord as Savior, then somehow I'm saved, that I'm going to heaven after this life. I think there's an escapism for that. I think it's like people don't actually do the work to embody what Jesus was teaching about. And this is huge, I think, like spiritual embodiment. It's one thing to read the Bible and be able to cite every verse in the Bible and to know the Bible by heart. But if you are not actually living by what Jesus was truly teaching, which was to love your neighbors, to treat everyone as you would treat yourself, to open your heart to everyone and to leave no one out of your heart. I think if you're not actually doing that, then there is a very huge misalignment with your beliefs. Because it's one thing, like I said, to read the Bible, to be able to quote the Bible, to understand it from like this logical level, but the embodiment part, that is the most important thing, right? And that's why I believe Jesus was always speaking about how we have to return to children, because when children come into the world, they don't understand the Bible, they don't know how to read, for that matter. They don't have to understand all the spiritual truths, but you know what they have? They have a purity of heart. They don't understand all the prejudice of the world. They don't understand race wars and gender diversity and wokeism and any of these political agendas. They don't understand that. They're not programmed. And they just have this pure heart where they're just following their desires. They just want to play. They just want to make friends. They don't care about anything. They're just living from their heart. And I really believe that's what Jesus was trying to get us to do as adults, as people that have been conditioned by a lot of political agendas, to come back to the innocence of children, to come back to who we truly are at our core, which is unconditional love, because we are made in the image and likeness of God, which is love, which is unconditional love. That is what we are. We are one with that God. We are created from that God. And to recognize that not just us, that we are not the only ones that are, created in the image and likeness of God, that everything in this universe is created in the image and likeness of God. Everything is source, everything is creator. That is who we truly are. And that is what it means to have Christ consciousness, to be Christ conscious, is to recognize that it's unity consciousness. It's oneness with all. It's seeing the divinity within yourself and seeing the divinity within everyone. In everything, in every plant, in every animal, in every human, seeing them all as one with you and holding nothing or no one out of your heart. It doesn't matter what religion someone is, it doesn't matter what background someone is, what gender they are, what sexuality they are, whatever the thing, it doesn't matter, that we are all one. We are all one. And we cannot judge others We cannot hold them out of our hearts, because that's what Jesus was talking about. Love them as you would love yourself. And why Jesus was very much always encouraging us to love everyone, treat everyone as you would treat yourself, and also to love your enemies. That was a big thing Jesus taught. Love your enemies. Why did he forgive those people that crucified him? Like, why did he do that? Because Jesus understood the laws of karma. Jesus understood the laws of cause and effect. He understood that if you do unto another, if you judge someone, if you hold them out of your heart, if you harm another in any way, then that will come back to you, because that person is you. And that the universe, there is such thing as the law of cause and effect, the law of karma, and everything in the universe must be in balance. And so if you harm another, you best be sure that that harm will come back to you in some way. That's just how it works. And if you truly want to escape the laws of karma, and karma can be a good thing as well. It's like even all your good deeds will come back to you as well. That's how karma works. It's just balance. It's spiritual balance. But essentially, Jesus was trying to teach us how to alleviate negative karma, right? Like, don't judge others, because if you're judging others, it means that you're judging yourself. If you're harming others, it means you're harming yourself. Anytime you're acting out of your ego, which is the belief in separation, according to A Course in Miracles, the ego is the belief in separation, that I am separate to God, that all of us are separate. I'm separate from this person over there. So me speaking to you now, my ego believes that I am separate from you listening to this podcast. The Christ within me recognizes that you and I are one. We are one, right? But my ego will tell me, no, Danielle, you are special. You are a unique, special person, and you are different from other people. They are not you. Those murderers on the TV, those rapists, they are not you. No, you're separate from them. They are separate from God. If I'm one with God, no, they can't be separate with God. That's our ego, okay? We all have an ego. No one doesn't have an ego, okay? Unless maybe Jesus, I don't know, maybe he fully dissolved his ego. But those of us, even those of us on an awakening path, we have an ego. Like I said, it's the belief in separation. It's not just, some people think the ego is like, oh, I think I'm really great. The ego can also be thinking that I'm small. The ego can be that voice in our head, the inner critic that's like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of this, I'm ugly, I'm unlovable, I'm not smart. That's our ego. That voice in your head, that critic, right? Or the one that's telling you, you are so great. Yeah, you should, abuse that person because they deserve that. You should hold that person out of your heart because they deserve it. Yeah. That voice in your head, that is our ego. We all have one. That is our ego. And Jesus is teaching us how we can dim that light down on the ego and turn the light up on the Christ, which is the unconditional love, which is oneness, which is the vertical axis, right? And the more that we can do that, the more we access the kingdom of heaven. Because the more we offer peace onto others, by the law of cause and effect, that means peace will come to us. If we extend unconditional love to others, guess what? We receive more unconditional love, right? Who doesn't want love? Who doesn't want peace? That's what all of us want. At a very deep core level, we all seek the same thing. We all want eternal peace. We all want unconditional love. That's what we want. Maybe we seek it in different ways. Maybe we think, oh, that partner, that boyfriend, husband, wife, that will bring me peace and happiness and love. Maybe a child will, maybe a bag, maybe a car, maybe a job, whatever the thing. We sometimes we externalize it, but if you really go deeper behind your desires, you'll see that what you truly want is unconditional love and peace and happiness. And all of those are guaranteed when we access the Christ. When we adopt this Christ consciousness, that is how we achieve it. That is how we can live in eternal peace, happiness, and love. I mean, who doesn't want that? And so let's talk about what Jesus was teaching and how we can bring more of our Christ consciousness forward. So what are the things we need to embody? Well, the first thing, as we spoke about, was love your neighbor as you would love yourself. Okay, that's the first thing. If you can get that, if you can understand that we are all one, and that how you treat other people will always come back to you in some way, whether you treat them well or whether you treat them, you know, mean-spirited or unlovingly, that will come back to you. Do unto others as you would do to yourself. So if you want, you know, people to treat you well, then you must also treat them well. No matter how horrible you think a person is, Jesus always said, love thy enemies, love your neighbors. And he spoke a lot about forgiveness. And I think that was a core message of him, forgiveness. You know, he forgave, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do. When he was on the cross, when he was getting crucified, he forgave those people that had condemned him, that had killed him, right? And so I know that can trigger a lot of people, because people are like, how can I forgive, you know, someone who's killing me or who's committed crimes, right? Like the rapist I spoke about earlier who killed Jill Ma. Like, there's a lot of people that would be like, how can I forgive that, right? When there's so many horrible things happening on the planet, how can I keep these people in my heart? How can I feel oneness towards those people, right? That's really the work. It's easy to see oneness in the people that we love and the people that bring us joy, right? But what about those people that trigger us? What about those people that like really rub us the wrong way? What about the people that we see committing crimes on the news? How do we not hold those people out of our hearts? Well, forgiveness, and they speak so much of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles. So I really suggest, if you want to go deeper on this, like please do yourself a favor and start studying A Course in Miracles, because it's truly amazing, and it talks so much about how we can awaken the Christ within us. But anyway, to come back to forgiveness, I think a lot of people think forgiveness, you know, happens on like this 3D level. Like remember how I spoke about the horizontal line, on how some people view reality from this very human, separate perspective, that I'm separate from God, that I'm separate from everyone else. Forgiving people on that level, right? I mentioned before, I'm someone who has been raped before. So for me to forgive someone who's raped me is very, very difficult from a human perspective. Like, this person has caused me harm. So it's like, how can I forgive this person who's done this horrible thing to me, right? However, if I am to connect with my Christ consciousness, right? If I am to see what has happened from the Christ level, from God, right? From this eternal divine level, right? To not identify with the physical assault, this avatar that I'm inhabiting, Danielle, who this tragic thing happened to me. And this is not to excuse what happened, okay? I had to do a lot of work, embodiment work. I had to do a lot of grieving and healing physically from what happened to me. But to truly heal, I had to adopt the Christ consciousness, and I had to forgive what had been done to me. I had to forgive that person that raped me. I had to. And how did I do it? I didn't do it from the human perspective. Like I said, I connected to the Christ, and the Christ understands oneness. So from a Christ perspective, I'm one with that person, that perpetrator, right? I'm one with them. They are made in the image and likeness of God. They have an eternal spirit, right? And if I can recognize that in that person, and see that the way that he acted, right, the person that raped me, if I can see that he did that out of blindness, because he did not recognize his own Christ, he did not recognize that I am one with him, because if he truly understood that I am him, he would never cause me harm, because he would recognize that he's just causing himself harm. If he understood the law of karma, that every deed, like karma is a debt collector. Trust me, everything that you put out into the universe, everything you do unto another, it will always come back to you. It might not even be this lifetime, but every debt must be repaid. Okay? I love that quote, karma is a bitch and she knows where you live. And I don't like to think of karma as bad, but I like to think that, you know, karma is an amazing justice system that God has created so the universe can work itself out, so that we don't need to. We don't have to adopt this position as the judge or the jury to condemn others. We can trust that God will take care of it, that that person will receive the redemption that they need, that they will have an experience where they will have to feel what it was like to do that onto another. Sometimes people talk about this in the life review after death. A lot of people talk about once you die, you actually have a life review. And a lot of people speak about how they had to actually feel the pain that they had caused another person from that person's consciousness, to recognize that we are all one and that we are actually not separate from one another. So, you know, from that perspective, there's no reason for me to condemn or to say this person, they need to go to hell, that this person needs to be like killed or go to jail or whatever. It's like recognizing that that person is just blind, right? That they don't understand this. They don't understand the laws of the universe. They don't understand karma. They don't understand themselves as God, right? And I also do believe that everyone on this earth, you know, we're all going through our own battles, and we don't really know what people have been through, right? We don't know what people are struggling with. A lot of people hide a lot of things behind closed doors, and I really do believe that hurt people. And yeah, it's horrible what some people do to others, right? I'm never condoning harming another person, but I'm sure if you went into the prison systems and you started really speaking with these people that committed crimes, a lot of them probably were abused as children. A lot of them probably, you know, were put in situations where they had been severely traumatized, which again, I'm not making excuses, but put them on that path to hurt another, right? We don't understand what every single person has been through. We don't understand what everyone is going through. We don't understand what karma we have. We don't understand what karma other people have. We don't know what we've done in past lives. We don't know what they've done in past lives. We don't understand everything. All we can do is connect to our eternal nature and trust that there is a divine balancing system that is working everything out. And when we forgive another, it's not condoning that behavior. I'm not saying that, you know, any of these things, rape, murder, anything is okay by any means. No. I'm not saying that's okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean to condone something. Forgiveness means to release yourself from that situation, from that karmic entanglement. When we connect to our Christ and we see that we are one with everything and everyone, particularly the people that do us harm, and we say, I forgive you, it means that I release myself and you from this karmic entanglement, right? I don't want to keep replaying this karmic loop, right? I am freeing myself. I've learned the lesson. I've accessed the Christ within me. I've seen this from a higher perspective. I've seen the spiritual truth behind this, and I release myself from this karmic entanglement. And I bless you on your journey to find the Christ within you, which you will in your own time. And also understanding the laws of karma, that person will have to feel what they have done to another. But I don't need to wear that anymore. I don't need to hold on to that. I don't need to let that weigh me down anymore. And the beautiful thing about when you can see it from that higher perspective, it's like, for me, it just felt so liberating, because it was very, very difficult for me to get over the sexual abuse that I had to experience in my life. And it wasn't until I started connecting to the Christ consciousness within me that I was actually able to heal from that. Because one, I could see that no matter what happens to my body, as Jesus represented on the cross, no matter what happens to our physical bodies, right? This avatar that I'm in right now as Danielle, right? No matter what happens to me, what happens to my body, no matter what, you know, tragedies occur, nothing can touch the Christ within me, my eternal nature. Nothing can harm that. My spirit is eternal. My spirit can never be touched. And that is the most empowering thing. And if Christ consciousness has taught me anything, it's empowerment. It's stepping into your power. It's knowing who you are, right? And that's exactly what Jesus stood for. Why, when he was being crucified, did Jesus not fight back? He never fought back against all of those people, right? He did that because he knew his true power. He knew that it came from within. He didn't have to prove himself to anyone on the outside, because he was one with the Father and he trusted God. And he knew that those people, the reason why he forgave them was to release himself and to also, bless his brothers on their karmic journey as well. Because those people that crucified him, they're going to have to face their own karma at some point. But Jesus didn't want to have to get caught in that karmic loop. So he forgave them, and by doing so, he forgave himself and he released himself from that karmic entanglement. So forgiveness, at the end of the day, I guess the point I'm really trying to make here is it's for you. It's for you. If you really can't get over the fact that, like, oh my gosh, I just can't forgive this person, what they've done is so horrible, remember you're forgiving them to release yourself from that karmic entanglement, whatever it is. Because whenever we hold on to emotions, particularly negative emotions, when we hold on to anger, resentment, unloving, I don't want to say negative emotions, but unloving emotions, when we hold someone out of our hearts, basically the universe just sees that as you haven't fully learned the lesson of that catalyst, or that, when I say catalyst, I suppose it's like suffering to a certain degree, like some sort of event that's occurred where there's a lesson for you to grow in love, and you haven't learnt it. If you haven't adopted forgiveness, you haven't fully learnt the lesson of that event. And so what happens? You have to come back and maybe repeat that same lesson. So why would you get stuck in that loop when you can just forgive it and move on? And guess what? When you forgive something, it's like you become lighter. You become more free because you actually align with that Christ consciousness. Remember the vertical consciousness? That is who you actually are. Who you are is perfection. It is pure, unconditional love. It is divine. It is peace. It is eternal peace, eternal love, eternal holiness. It's literally heaven. That is what you are, heaven. And so every time you hold someone out of your heart, you're denying yourself heaven. You're denying yourself the peace of God. You're denying yourself unconditional love. Like, if you truly loved yourself, you would forgive everyone and everything, because that is the true pathway to enlightenment, to that vertical axis where you are one with the divine, you are one with God, you are one with Source. And that's what we're all seeking. That's why we're all here. That's why you're here. And maybe you don't even know that on a conscious level, but I guarantee if you keep digging behind all your wants and desires, you'll find that that's exactly what you want. You want enlightenment. You want to self-actualize. You want to be empowered. And how are you going to do that? You're not going to find that empowerment in the outside world. It comes from within your heart. That's where it is. So I think to end it, I'm just going to leave us with one of the most important quotes from A Course in Miracles, and that is, only love is real. Only love is real. So everything else is an illusion. There is only one reality. That's what the Course always speaks about. There's only one reality, which is God's reality, which is unconditional love. And then, so what does that mean? That this world that we see, right, there's a lot of craziness going on. There's a lot of unloving behavior going on in our world, right? So what does that mean? It means that people are blind, that's all an illusion. If we're seeing that in the world, that means we're blind, right? Because everything is a projection. Everything outside of you is a projection of what's inside of you. So if you're seeing unloving behavior, that means that there's something unloving living within you. And that's not to make you bad. That just means that there's work to be done. We all need to go into our shadows. We need to look at the parts of ourselves where we've held love outside of us, where we've maybe, You know, it could even be just judging your body, like hating certain parts of your body. That's an act of defying God in a way, because if you are holy, even your soul chose your body, your hair, your face, everything about you, God has chosen. Like your higher self, your soul has perfectly designed. And when you reject aspects of your body, for example, this is just a tangible example, you're basically denying your higher self. You're almost like saying, I don't like what you created. You know, that's not acting in oneness. Oneness is recognizing that that everything is one. I am one with that tree. I am one with, you know, my work colleagues. I am one with this microphone that I'm speaking into. I am one with the divine. I am one with my hair on my head. Like, I am one with everything. And that's the Christ consciousness. It's recognizing that everything is sacred, everything is divine. And can you, even in your most challenging, most triggering times, can you recognize the sacred in that? That's the challenge. You know, Jesus never said it's going to be easy. I mean, look at his path when he came to planet Earth. He had to physically be crucified to prove this point. It's not an easy road. The spiritual path, like, you know, people think it's all light and love. It's not. It's, you have to go into your shadows. You have to look at your darkness. You have to look at your trauma, the things you don't want to look at. You have to look at them and you have to forgive them. You have to love them. You have to bring love into it. You have to bring acceptance. And every time you do that, you heal and you access more of your Christ nature. That's Christ consciousness. So I hope this episode helped you. I don't know if I just went on a tangent. It went a bit longer than I had anticipated, but this is a topic I'm so passionate about, and maybe I'll do more episodes on it in future because there's so much to unpack, and I don't even know if I did it justice today. But I hope that kind of gives you an overview. I think this Christ consciousness, this is the future. You know, when Jesus spoke about the second coming of Christ, he wasn't speaking about a physical reincarnation of Jesus the man. No. When he said the second coming of Christ, what he spoke about was that humanity would awaken. There would be a collective awakening of the Christ within us. And like I said, it's already there. It's just something you have to align with. It's something you have to want. You have to desire it. And the more of us that embody this Christ nature, the more of us, because we are one collective, we are one collective consciousness, it will just miraculously spread across the whole globe. And we can shift this whole collective consciousness, this world that we see, right? We can shift that into being one where everyone values the Christ within them and each other. Imagine a world where everyone just loved each other and respected each other and saw God within them, within everything. I just imagine what kind of world that would be. And that's the golden age that we're stepping into. That's the fifth dimension that Earth is ascending to. This is the second coming of Christ, which is something I'm so excited about. And it's something that I'm here to help people to awaken within them. As I go on my own journey, I'm not fully there, but I'm on this journey. And so I hope this episode helps you to really start embodying these Christ principles within yourself and to understand that you are here to remember who you are, that you are divine, that you are the Christ. And yeah, that's not to feel sad that Jesus isn't coming back. You know what the thing is? Jesus never actually left Earth. He's been here just in a different dimension. He's very much in touch with Earth and the collective awakening. But it's for us to find our own empowerment and to recognize that we are all Christ. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to share today. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or maybe you want to send me a DM on Instagram. I love hearing from you. I hope you found this episode helpful. And until next week, take care, my loves. Mwah.